Shorebreak Sounds.
Welcome to Over the Falls podcast, episode number 46. This week we sat down with multiple award-winning wedding photographer Andy Griffiths. Originally from Aberystwyth, we discussed his upbringing, photography, how COVID and lockdowns affected both him mentally and financially, and also an in-depth conversation on raising his son Albie, who has superpowers. This week's episode is sponsored by Dove and Dowel, bespoke kitchens and furniture made for you at a fair price. Proudly supporting and listening to Over the Falls podcast. Visit them at www.doveanddowel.co.uk. It just seems logical to always start his podcast going back to the beginning.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So born and raised in Aberystwyth.
Yep.
Plask Creek Primary School.
Indeed, yep. Good old Plask Creek.
Yeah. Then on to Penglice.
Yep.
And
Good.
then, did you enjoy Penglice?
Looking back, I enjoyed Penglice, mainly with my friends. Didn't overly enjoy school,
Okay.
as in like education, at all.
You like sport and stuff?
Yeah, I did like sport. I was good at rugby. I was all right at football. Nothing ever amazing. Rugby, I was good because I was massive.
Cool.
Basically.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was a lump.
And then after school then, you had a bit of a break. Did you go straight to uni?
Straight to uni, straight to Swansea.
Okay.
Straight to Swansea. A few of my friends went there, yourself included.
Yeah.
Went to Swansea. Main reason why I went to Swansea was to go to America as part of my course. So I did that. Lived in Colorado for just over a year. Worked for a hotel. It was a fantastic experience.
What did you do in uni then? What was it?
It was a really hard degree. It was leisure tourism and sport management.
Really good grades to get into that course.
I needed 2 E's actually. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It sounds like a good course though.
It was
Went to
good.
Colorado for a
It
year.
was really enjoyable. Made some good friends there. I had a fantastic experience in Colorado. Wouldn't have changed that at all, really, to be honest.
Was that a ski? That's a ski resort.
Ski resort.
Cool.
So it was the Ritz-Carlton in Bachelor Gulch, which is just about half an hour away from Vale, hour away from Aspen. So Dumb and Dumber was filmed in Aspen.
Where the beer flows like wine.
Very similar hotel and everything else. So
Nice.
yeah, it was good.
Okay, so Colorado, and then you came back.
Came back, finished my degree, and then after that came back to Aberystwyth and worked in the academy for a while, so which was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoyed that, and then had a few other jobs. Started working for the youth offending team, working for a charity then for working with young people across Ceredigion, and then ended up going to Australia.
What year was that? Do you remember?
I went travelling first in 2008.
Eight.
And then ran out of money, came back, and then worked for Academy and the charity again, and then moved to Australia in 2012, I think it was. No, 2010. And then got a job in Sydney, moved out there for a job, and then stayed out there for a few years.
What were you doing?
I was working for a mental health charity, working with homeless people or people that were in accommodation, like supported accommodation, working with them to better their lives, improve their mental health, and try and essentially just rehabilitate them.
Okay.
Was that like an accident, how you kind of went into that, or did you purposefully go into charity work trying to help people?
I've always worked, since I was like 16, 17, I always used to work with in play schemes and after school clubs and stuff like that. And I was always the one that would be like the positive male role model for some of the young people that were there if like they needed a bit more support or needed like a one-to-one mainly. So there's a couple of kids that I used to work with a lot there. That then just moved into working for the youth offending team and then just carried on essentially. And one of my friends, Chris, was traveling in Australia, and I remember it was freezing cold, and I was on Facebook talking to him, and I was like, I need to go back to Australia. So I looked online for jobs, found this job, rang the guy up and was like, I haven't got a visa, I haven't got a flight, I'm not in Australia, can I apply? And he was like, yeah, go for it. What's your experience? Explain. She was like, yeah, you sound great. And then I think 3 weeks later I was on a plane and just sold all my stuff and off I went.
Did you have a Teams interview then for that?
Teams interview or Zoom or whatever.
Yeah. How did you find that?
It was good. I had all the answers to the questions behind me, and
I asked that on purpose because I remember Dave telling me that story. And then he told me about it. He said he had all these like post-it notes around the PC, and I thought that's a great idea.
And then behind it, some A4 pieces of paper with like the big kind of buzzwords that I should use and stuff. So it worked well. And my manager out there, his name was Steve, was one of the best managers that you could ask for, and so was the people that I worked with. So it was an incredible experience.
Awesome. Is there a reason why because obviously you're not in Australia anymore?
Yeah.
So what happened with you coming back?
I was in Sydney and then moved to Perth. I became a manager essentially and opened up a service in Perth. And then after about 10 months, 11 months of that, my brother, Mark, rang me basically and just said, look, dad's not doing very well. He's getting old. He's getting older, and he suffered from some health issues and stuff. And he was like, you need to think about coming home. And it just so happens that a couple of days later, my manager, who was a different manager at the time, didn't speak to me very nicely. And I was just like, do you know what? I'm done. So I quit and booked my flight to come home, and I was home kind of 10 days later.
How long were you there for?
In Australia in total, just shy of 4.5 years, I think. And I was just about to get residency. So I moved, and then a few weeks later, my friends that applied at the same time, all their residencies came through. So I was kind of about a month short of getting it. But I came home, looked after my dad, moved to Liverpool, met my ex-partner, had a son, and, got to look after my dad for his last couple of years. So I don't regret coming back at all.
Of course you don't.
No, not at all. You'll never get that time back, will you?
No, exactly.
Never, ever. So when did you have Albie, your son?
The 9th of June, 2015.
Well done. Well remembered.
Yeah, thanks.
You were in Liverpool at the time?
Yeah, so I was living in Liverpool and met my ex-partner, and then we fell pregnant with Albie, and I was living just outside Liverpool by this point in a little village called Rainford, which is where I still live now.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any expectations going in being a dad? Because obviously you knew you were going to be a dad.
Yeah, I think you always have that expectation of like, I'm going to have when we found out I was going to have a son, it was like, great, can take him to play football, can do this, can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, Albie isn't able, he could play football and he likes football, he likes playing football, but he has some additional needs. So he's got autism and ADHD and something called sensory processing disorder.
Okay.
So team-based sports and everything else, he really needs to kind of concentrate and stuff, and that's where kind of he struggles. So he also needs a lot of kind of downtime after school just to kind of re-regulate. So we kind of do a very low demand parenting, so we don't really force him or ask him to do much. He still has, he'll brush his own teeth and get dressed himself, and once he's had his dinner he takes his plate back to the sink and things like that. But any of the high demands can cause some issues for him, so we just keep it low demand.
So correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology or anything here, but at what age did you know that he had additional needs?
It's funny, like he was in one nursery, and they the way they handled it, their concerns, I didn't appreciate. So we ended up moving him. But he always, as a kid, whenever he used to try and grab something or touch something, he'd always tap something a few times before it, and we were like, that's a bit strange. So there was that. And then when he was like 2 and 3, he was a bit kind of, his milestones wasn't always hitting them on time and things. And I always thought he's probably got ADHD. I think autism was a bit more of a shock for me and a massive learning curve, as it would be for, I think, any parent and things. But he got formally diagnosed when he was 5, I think. Well, he was 5 for ADHD, and he may have just been 6 for autism. So he's on medication, and we started him on medication when he was just before he was 6.
And again, correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology, but he was in a normal school.
So he went to mainstream school.
Thank you.
He went to a mainstream school until last April. So what's that, like 18 months ago or something like that? Yeah. So he was in year 3, and we were really lucky. His friends in school were really understanding. The parents were all really understanding, because Albie, with any child with additional needs, they struggle sometimes, and kind of the way that they want to express themselves, they may not be able to, as a normal child can. Can't always express themselves the same, so it comes out sometimes in frustration. So for Albie, for example, he will really want to play with his friends, but what he does sometimes is he'll like grab them or try and hug them, but his hug, because he's so big and because of his sensory processing disorder, his a normal child's hug, and I hate saying normal child because Albie is a normal child, he's just got some additional needs, but yeah, of course. It's like his normal touch is stronger than what, say, your child's normal touch is. So, we've had some really kind of understanding parents along the way, but I'm sure that there's sometimes where, behind my back or something, they've been like, oh, bloody Albie done this to my son today, because it's always like my precious child and things. But kids with additional needs, they don't mean any harm. They're not naughty kids. They just struggle with their communication style, and the way that they learn is very different to others.
Well, we have that conversation like outside the school gates sometimes. Some kids' names get spoken about more than others because they have additional needs. Yeah, and they're doing naughty stuff. But again, they don't know that they're doing it.
But it's not naughty though. It's perceived as naughty, but it's just their communication is different to others, and it's often like just a struggle with the environment that they're in. So Albie was really struggling in the environment that he was in, which was mainstream school, because it was too noisy. In COVID, for example, when the kids weren't allowed to go in to school, he was in the second lockdown. He was allowed to go in, and it was dead quiet in school. He thrived. He did really well because it was so quiet. So in year 3, anyway, we ended up making the decision that we think, based on conversations with school, with speech and language, with educational psychologists and everything else, that he should go to an additional needs school, basically, which was a massive fight in itself to get him into that. I had to essentially take my local authority to tribunal, to court. They ended up conceding a few months before the court date, so he was placed in the school that we wanted him to go to, thankfully, and he's doing much better because he's in the right environment. Amazing. And it's the same for any child. And I think back to kind of the question what you asked before about expectations of being a dad, I never ever thought that I would be having to fight to take my local authority to tribunal to get my child the right education for what he is, and it's the whole system is just in an appalling state. And that for me was some of the most challenging times of my life, basically just fighting every day to get him the right education.
It's amazing thing what you've done though for his life, for his future. You've done an incredible thing.
It took a lot, and I'm got a great relationship with his mum, thankfully, and she basically just said, essentially let me off my leash, basically, and just said, keep me informed. Any big decision, obviously, I need to know about it and all that stuff. But she just said, look, just do what you need to do, kind of that's what I did, and off I went and
done it.
Hounded the local authority every day for
it's like he who
3-4
shouts
months.
loudest is usually the one that gets
Essentially,
heard,
but I was very lucky. Like, believe it or not, in a wedding that I was photographing in North Wales, a guest there has a child with additional needs, and just by coincidence I just got chatting, and she was like, oh, you should come to this this positive autistic living, essentially a group, a parents group that we have on a monthly basis. You should come. And I went there, and it just put proper fire in your belly. And people, when you get your diagnosis, or when your child gets their diagnosis, they kind of say, right, so he's got autism and ADHD, and there you go. You don't get told anything else. You just get a few leaflets that kind of mean nothing to you because you're not an expert at that point. And that's what happened. So,
how did you feel when you had the diagnosis? Was it like, were you relieved in any way, or?
I would say relief when we got the diagnosis, just because it gives a kind of understanding of why and where his troubles may lie in the future. But so many people have autism, ADHD that have, either been misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, or just never gone forward to get it. But for us with Albie, he's got something called an EHCP, which might be different in Wales, but it's an educational healthcare plan that stays with him basically until he's an adult. So all the way through education, this is a legal document that we can hold his school to account if they're not providing X, Y, Z.
Wow.
And having that is just amazing.
So
I've been quite lucky, to be fair. I've fought hard, but some people I know are still fighting and been months, years down the line and not got to where I've got.
It must be so hard because all you want is the best for your kid or your children.
Yeah. And it
must be so difficult.
When you have a child with additional needs, and Albie's fantastic, I'm so fortunate, essentially, for want of a better word, that he's verbal, he can communicate, he could be here now and have a conversation with you. There's nothing that he can't really do. It's just he needs more time to do it. But some of my friends, they don't have that, and it's so frustrating to hear the fight that other people are going through. And it is, I read something somewhere that it's similar. Parents of children with additional needs suffer from PTSD in similar ways to, people that have had serious kind of life impacting events. I can't remember what the exact quote was, but I can see it because it really gets to you when you're going through it. It really does. There's been many tears shed.
Oh, I'm sure. Can you tell us a bit about why you had to fight so hard? Is it because there's only a certain amount of places in these schools, or what?
The whole system's a mess, but it mostly comes down to finance and funding of school places, because it is a specialist provision that he's in. So, and what other kids need. So it's essentially just lack of places and funding associated with it.
Funding in education nationally is really poor, and it's getting worse.
Yeah,
especially here in Ceredigion, it's getting worse.
Yeah,
there's schools closing. There's not provisions for the amount of children that needed who have additional needs. It's just not there.
I remember having an argument with one of the people from my local authority, and I basically just said, look, if you don't put him into this school that everyone's saying he needs, the only thing that's going to happen is that in 10 years' time, when he's like 17, 18, is that you're going to be picking up a much higher bill because of poor education, poor outcomes, mental health issues, everything that's associated with it. And the cost saving benefit isn't there if they don't get the support now. It's cheaper in the long run to have him in a proper environment when he's young to when picking up the pieces when he's an adult.
Yeah.
And we're really lucky. I've got me and his mum and our partners, respective partners. We've all got kind of supportive families and everything else. There's people out there that don't have that, and they're the ones that you kind of think, oh, poor family, poor kid.
Must be hard, very, very hard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna flip it up a little bit.
Yep.
You mentioned photography.
Yep.
Can we talk about that?
Yep, of course.
What got you into photography then?
When I lived, I've always liked photography, but when I lived in Australia, a friend who actually lives just down the road in Llanrwsted, Dave Owen, he was going out taking pictures of, he lived in on the beach, and he was going out taking pictures of, you know, surfers, sunrise, or everything else. And I was like, I fancy doing that. So I went to watch the Rugby World Cup in New Zealand in 2011, and in the airport on the way back, I saw a camera and I was like, I'll buy one. Cool. So I bought one, 2011, went out, used it, loved it. And then when I came home, my brother was like, do you fancy taking pictures of my niece and nephew? I was like, yeah, fine. So just went out, and then other people saw them and were like, will you take some? And I was like, yeah, no worries. And I thought I could make a bit of money on the side here. And then friend asked if I could shoot his wedding. I said, yeah, I'll probably be crap, because it was the first, hadn't had any experience. Did that and thought, yeah, I really enjoy that.
Cool.
And it's just gone on from there, really. I've invested in myself quite a bit. I did pay for some mentoring off another photographer, which lasted about 6 months, which was quite intense, learning not about how to take a picture, because I knew that, but more about like the business side of things and how to like sell yourself and how to, you know, build a website and all that stuff, which I just had no idea of. That was in 2015, alongside essentially, I started in 2015, and that was alongside another job, having a kid, losing my dad. So it was an intense period, but it's gone from strength to strength, and, you know, touch wood again, I've been essentially fully booked for the last few years.
It's brilliant. And why weddings? Why did you want to go into that?
At the time, it was to not have to work during the week, so that I could be there for Albie. And then at the time, his mum would then be able to work, and then we'd be able to kind of have time together on weekends if I didn't have a wedding, or she'd be able to have him on a Saturday when I was in a wedding. But, you know, things happen, and we separated ourselves. So it's worked really well. We share custody. There's no issues whatsoever there, so it works really well.
That's really good.
Amazing. That's nice to hear, isn't it? Because obviously it doesn't happen to everybody like that.
No.
Yeah.
You know, not that amicable all the time, is it?
Yeah, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't be that person that would just fall out and have anything impact on my kid.
No.
It's the common goal, isn't it, that you should have, is that kind of your number one priority together is that kid or kids.
Yeah.
And then it's so sad to see that it just doesn't really happen all the time.
Yeah. And like I say, I'm really lucky. We speak, text almost daily, just to be like, Albie's fine, he's had a good day in school, or Albie's, you know, done this and this has been great, or whatever. It works really well.
So you went through a period of COVID as well. What happened to your business then?
Good old COVID. So essentially, it was a bit of a nightmare for me, because in 2019, I went from being a sole trader to a limited company in November of 2019. So when COVID came along, I was not entitled to any support whatsoever, because I was a newly formed company. So I didn't get any payouts. So I had no money coming in. And essentially went from, in 2020, what would have been, say, 50 weddings, went to 7 of weddings of 10 people.
In masks.
In masks. So it was a nightmare, really. Lost a lot of money. People always say, but you must have made it back. Well, no, I haven't, because all that happened was the people in 2020 that moved date to someone else that could have booked in 2021, for example, or 2022. So my last COVID wedding was in 2023. So it took 3 years to kind of finish all that backlog. And I'm really lucky that my couples, 99.9 of them were fantastic. And even some of them that have become friends of mine now were like, look, we're meant to be getting married in a month, and we know we're not going to, but we've got the money. do you want us just to pay you now so you've got money coming in? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be outstanding. So there was a few that did that, and then when their wedding came along, you know, you just look after them, and it was fantastic, really, what people did, because there was a lot of people in the industry, and if anyone hears this, they might not appreciate me saying this, but whatever. Some people were charging couples to move dates. It's not the couple's fault. And they were like, well, if you move date, then it's going to be like 200 quid or 500 quid more. I just took the view of I would want to be treated how I would want to be treated by someone else. Or I would treat people how I'd want to be treated. Yeah. So I just said, look, here's my diary. I made an online diary. If it's in red, I'm booked. If it's orange, someone's potentially going to book it. And if it's green, you can book it. And I cancelled all my holidays. I cancelled everything and just said, there's my diary. And thankfully, I moved, I was able to move like 47 out of 50. And then obviously we had a massive move again in 2021 because of the second lockdowns and everything else. So 2020, 2021 were both massively impact.
It was an absolute mental time, wasn't it? I'm scared to bring this conversation up with you.
I'll happy to talk about it. I started off being like, got to behave, got to listen and blah, blah, blah.
Same
as most people.
Yeah, I was all for it. And as time went on, I was just like, there's something not right here. And I actually got a job working for a little charity in St. Helens where I live. And I was chatting to someone that was there, and she works in the hospital and blah, blah, blah. And she was just saying it wasn't what the news was reporting. So I actually did some freedom of information requests to the hospital trust. And I feel, and other people obviously disagree, and that's fine, but I feel like we were massively lied to by the hospitals, by the media. So now I don't believe anything that the media says at all, ever.
I have, since COVID, I have stopped watching the news.
Yep.
I literally have stopped completely. My morning routine before COVID, get up in the morning, put BBC News on, and just watch it every single morning before I go to work. You know, be at 6, 6, whatever it is. Don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I've lost faith in them.
Yeah.
And I've lost trust in them because of how much fear was put into everybody, and especially like my parents.
Yep.
I mean, they stuck to the rules, like lots and lots of other people did.
Yeah. So did I for quite a while,
and I don't disagree. I don't want to go down the conspiracy theory route. There was 100% there was a virus. It definitely was something going on. But what I will say for around here, right? So we had the lockdown in March 2020, right?
Yeah.
We had it here in 2019, November. It had done the rounds and it had gone. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Because I remember everybody had this hacking cough in November, December, but no one had heard of COVID.
Yep.
Come round 2020, March, getting locked down, what the hell's going on? This is absolutely terrifying.
Yep.
Like, people are hearing in the hospitals that the beds are empty. Nothing really going on. It was one of the safest places to be in Ceredigion. Some of the house prices went through the roof.
I became quite vocal about everything on like social media and et cetera, and like, it's funny now, you get memories come up.
Oh yeah.
Like, and they come up and say like my comment, and then sharing whatever post, and it's like, I was right on a lot of stuff.
I bet you had a lot of hate when it happened.
Yeah, I lost some. There's quite a few people unfriended me, which is fine, you know. But
you're entitled to your
everyone
opinion,
is,
though.
and that's fine.
This is an important thing, isn't it? You don't have to agree with people, and people don't have to get heated with you just because they don't agree with you.
But I'll be honest though, COVID was a massive wake up call for me. Like, it made me really not trust government and media and stuff like that. But also, like, health wise, at the time I was carrying quite a bit of timber. And my mental health, obviously, when you've got a child with additional needs that's at home with you 24/7 as well, or you know, within reason, you're worried about him because they're more vulnerable apparently. Trying to keep them active and you know, trying to educate and do the work that we were being sent home to try and do. It was like, I've no idea, because some of the stuff he comes out with, he literally is a genius when it comes to like animals and dinosaurs, and he talks about them, and I've got no idea, and I'm like, I'll Google it, and then I literally have to Google.
I'll be right back.
Honestly, that's what I have to do, because he knows so much. But we went for a walk actually, because he had additional needs. At the time, you're only allowed to go out for an hour. Apparently, like people were only allowed to go out for an hour, but we were allowed to go out all day. Oh. We could be out for as long as we want. So it's fantastic. We used to go for walks and miles, and it was great because it was beautiful weather as well. But we went for a walk once up the Lake District when you were allowed to travel a bit further, and there was a photo taken of me in the water at the top of the Old Man of Coniston holding Albie. And the next day I seen it and I was like, oh my word, I am massive. My tits are huge. And I was like, something's got to happen. So I've got to make a change. And literally since then I've lost 4.5 stone. And the physical exercise in that period, I think, was one of the main reasons why I stayed sane, because, and I use that term loosely, because my mental health was not good. When you're dealing with people's 24/7 having messages, emails, saying, oh, we're moving our date, you're going to lose money, thinking about how am I going to afford to live and everything else, my mental health did deteriorate, but physical exercise came into my life just at the right time, I think. So,
and that photo was the catalyst as well.
My boobs was the catalyst. Yeah.
Your boobs.
Yeah, boobs.
You're rolling the biscuits in a little bit.
Yeah. How was the first run or the first gym session?
So it was running and cycling.
How heavy were you?
Just shy of 19 stone.
And how heavy are you now, would you say?
About 14.5.
And you are tall. I've noticed that you're taller than I remember as well. So that's pretty good.
I'm just shy of 6'6".
Are you?
Yeah.
What?
Just shy.
No way.
Tiny bit shy of 6'6".
You're the tallest person I know.
Yeah.
I think you are.
Michael Jordan was 6'6".
Congratulations.
He's
6'6".
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So I started running, cycling, basically. That first cycle, I remembered I only did about 3 miles and I was blowing. I mean blowing.
I love these conversations though, because the hardest part is getting those trainers on.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting out, just getting out that bloody door.
Yeah.
And especially if you're like 19 stone, that must have been tough.
My partner, she was still going to work at the time. She was still going to work. And then when she'd come home, I would have had Albie say all day. And she'd walk through the door and I'd be like, she would see that, I was tired or whatever. And she'd be like, right, off you go, get out. Because it was nice weather as well. So I'd just go out for a run. And like, it was honestly, it kept me sane. And as I say, my mental health in that period did massively deteriorate hugely.
It's so important, isn't it? We talk about it a lot on this show, and physical exercise is so important. And for some people, like lucky enough for you, you were able to exercise all day. But for most people, it was local as well. So it wasn't just like an hour or once a day. It was like local, and you couldn't travel. And then another thing that I hate about COVID were people were like policing each other. So I remember that people would watch you go down the prom, right? And then they were looking at you thinking, Luke doesn't live in town. Or I was thinking this. And then, because I drove down. I got 2 kids. Isla was a baby at the time, my youngest. And I drove down and I walked the prom. I think, why shouldn't I walk the prom? But I could tell people were judging me for driving 3 miles down a hill and walking on the prom.
Mental.
Crazy times.
Crazy times.
It was a hot day, and it was me, Kat, and the 2 kids. We're the only ones on the beach. We broke the rules. We were sitting on the beach by the water. No one on the beach. Yeah. And then I think a police car went past. And we went, oh shit! It's just crazy times.
I remember one day we were out having a picnic, and there must have been in like the local park near us, and there must have been 10 policemen or officers walking through, and they were like, "Oh, how long have you been here?" And like, just having a picnic, and they're like, "Enjoy yourselves." They were absolutely sound. Yeah. They knew, we weren't a group of kids or whatever, or a group of adults hanging about. We were just having a nice picnic in the sun, out of the house, and then go home. So they were sound. But when you look back, it was a crazy time. But my business, to be fair, again, going back to where we were, has just grown strength to strength since then. And a lot of people, you know, some of my couples have referred me on to other people because of the way I dealt with them, because I was just, I honestly, I think I was awesome at the way I dealt with people. I was just as flexible as I possibly could be.
And they'd appreciate it as well, because it's stressful for them.
Massively.
Something, isn't it?
It'd be horrendous for them.
You know,
and
if
it's thousands of pounds. And I know some venues that refuse to give money back, and et cetera, when they couldn't get married. And, you know, you lose, some couples would have lost thousands of pounds, and it's massively stressful. So, you know.
I already know the answer to this question because we've just been for a run and we were talking about it then. But so you also got recently diagnosed with ADHD, right?
Yeah. So it's funny, when we were going through the process of with Albie, we did a program with our local authority to talk about sensory processing disorder. So sensory processing is just basically the way your senses deal with stuff and how they take it into your brain. Everyone has different things. So me and my ex, Albie's mum, were sat there and we were going through this form, and she was just like, this is like laughing, having a joke. Like, she was like, this is literally you. Everything they're saying is you. And I was like, yeah, everything is me. What I'm hearing this, like, so from that, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Quite a bit of this makes sense. So, I'm open about it. I've spoken to you essentially loads about it, but my mental health has been bad in places over the last kind of since my dad died, essentially. But it still wasn't always kind of stacking up as to why I was thinking or feeling like this. So I went, a friend of mine works for the ADHD Foundation, spoke to her, and she was like, just get assessed, just do the process and see. So I did it. And yeah, last March, I think it was, 2023 it would have been. I was not formally diagnosed, like I'm just at the end of doing the formal diagnosis part, but essentially the paperwork and everything, and the ADHD Foundation has essentially said that based on the evidence and the answers that I've given and everything, that I've got ADHD. I think I scored something like 8% out in the tests that you're meant to do, and an average male scores like 85 or something.
So you got 8%.
Yeah. So you have to sit there basically with a button, and on a computer screen you have to stay there for like half an hour or something, and a red square comes in, or a blue square, or blue circle and a red circle. And when they match, so a blue circle and a blue circle bounce in after each other, you have to click. And I was just awful. I just couldn't concentrate. It's like I could hear the lady writing and clicking a pen, and I was just like really unsettled and nervous about it all and stuff. So I was appalling. So yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes sense for my childhood. It makes sense for my teenagers, my 20s. It makes sense for everything. Just about how I've dealt with stuff, why I was always like the class clown in school and getting into trouble, especially in primary school. But I'm able to function with it. But in jobs that I've had, especially the more senior ones that I've had, because I've managed charities and stuff like that, I've always had to have like a secretary or someone to essentially organise me. And now I've just got case management systems that, I'm really organised when it comes to work. And nothing kind of goes amiss. I always say, like, I'm not the most professional photographer in the world, but who wants a really boring, professional 24/7? I let my hair down. I'm a human at the end of the day, and that's how I come across to my couples. But yeah, so I'm just at the very end of the process of getting my formal diagnosis. But my doctor, who's incredible, wrote to the ADHD Foundation saying that they won't manage if I went down the medication route, they wouldn't manage it, so I'd have to go private for meds. So
okay,
do you want hard question, do you want to go on medication?
A couple of my friends that have been diagnosed in adult life have gone on meds, and they're like, it has changed everything for them.
In what sense?
Positive way?
Yeah.
In positive way, in being able to just, like, that cloud in your head's just lifted, and you're able to focus more and, everything else. But I'm 40 now and I've not had them. So they make a massive difference for my kid. Like without meds, my kid would really struggle to go to school and everything else. Like it would be horrendous.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know. I think it's more of just having that kind of, that's the understanding. That's why I think and why I act sometimes in the way I do. Because sometimes I go up and down. Like ADHD impacts people differently, everyone in a different way. And I remember one of my friends and two of my friends, Stu and Katie Jones, and their two girls came up to see me in Rainford, and then we went shopping in Manchester, and I was the most erratic I've ever been in my life. I was horrendous. Like I was so hyper and erratic, and they were like, "Are you all right?" Because I lost it.
Impulsive.
Massively. As I have been moving back from Australia, I make big decisions kind of stupidly, and I have done that, you know, all the way through. I've always made decisions kind of and then deal with the consequences after, which hasn't always been a positive.
So has it given you some form of closure, do you think, when you were diagnosed, looking back retrospectively?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly for the way, you know, I'm not saying I've ever been an alcoholic, but I used to drink a lot in Aberystwyth. That's kind of what a lot of people do, you know, especially when we were younger.
So growing up, yeah.
So I used to drink a lot, and my behaviour when I was hyper and stuff like that, I could then pass off as I was pissed. But in reality, it was probably just me being a bit hyper, but then have that kind of cover, if you like, and that kind of excuse for some of my behaviours, which haven't always been the best.
Do you find like you can use it to your advantage though? As in, especially like how relentless you could be in like business, or as long as you channel it in the right place.
Let me tell you.
Like a sports person or, you know, I don't know, anything.
Yeah.
If you channel it in the right place, you can be successful because there's no off button almost, is there?
So my business,
yeah.
Whenever I start something, if I get it going and I'm properly into it, it will be a success. I know it will be a success. Any job I've ever had, I've always been, like, I sound arrogant here, but I've always been successful. I've always enjoyed what I've done. I've always got on well with my managers most of the time. I would say one thing that really, where my ADHD was incredibly beneficial, was getting Albie into the school that he needed, because I was relentless, ringing every day if I needed to, emailing, sorting out documents, sorting everything. And my partner, she sorted the documents really and did a lot and helped massively. But the ringing, the constant nagging, the kind of just relentless kind of approach to not giving in. I said to the people that were involved, I was like, I'm just going to tell you now, you're not going to win in court. I am going to win in court, and I'll put everything into it, making sure that we win. And, you know, thankfully we didn't have to go to court, because there was also someone else, that a woman that a friend of my brother's, she was just an angel that came into my life at the right time, and she helped massively. And without her, we may not have got into the school, because she helped hugely. But I was relentless, like a proper dog with a bone. I would not give in. And it's been the same actually with his medication as well. We've had some run-ins with the paediatricians where they change meds. And I remember one day I rang them, I think it was 37 times in one afternoon. And then eventually, because they weren't answering, I just left a voicemail saying, unless you ring me back in the next 5 minutes, I know she's in clinic. I'm going to come and I'm not going to leave. You'll have to get the police to remove me. And they rang me back and we changed his meds, and it's been perfect ever since. And I've got a great relationship with him. So it's just, it's, you know, I think for me, it's definitely impacted on some relationships that I've had with, you know, partners and stuff, in a negative way and positive, but probably mainly negative, in the past. But I've learned to learn with it, live with it now, and grow with it, and I'm quite open about it.
So they had, because one of my questions actually was, is it positive in any way? And I wrote that question thinking that obviously it would be, because nothing's negative. And then another question I wrote down was, do you think back in the day people just didn't realize people had ADHD, or do you think things like ADHD are on the rise for a number of different things that, because we live our lives in quite a different way to back in the day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I do. I think there's two answers really. I think when we were younger, we were passed off as I was passed off as a naughty kid, especially in Plascreek.
Yeah.
I used to live outside the headmaster at the time, Mr. Evans. I used to live outside his office like daily. Same in secondary. I used to get into trouble an awful lot with specific teachers that made my life hell, to be honest. And then there was other teachers that were incredible with me. Like the PE teachers were always great. Mrs. Payne, Mr. Payne were fantastic. And I do have to say that when I used to work in Ceredigion, and I went back to work in schools. And in school, I never ever used to like Mr. Lewis and Mrs. Lewis. And they are two of the best teachers that I ever had, looking back. And knowing how they were teachers and how they cared and stuff for other kids that I used to work with. I used to sit in professional meetings with them, and they were fantastic. And I never appreciated it at the time because you used to get into trouble and stuff. But they were fantastic.
I remember Mr. Lewis. She was as well, but I remember Mr. Lewis, and he was always really good. I think he had like a bad rap because he was quite almost like stern but fair.
Yeah. But if you're a naughty
great.
Kid, you ran into him, you clashed far more.
Yeah.
But looking back,
such a voice on him.
They were fantastic. There were so many great teachers up there. But yeah, so I forgot what your question was.
So basically, it was were people not diagnosed back in the day,
so I think people were not diagnosed, and I think the awareness around it has become far better, and the understanding and the way that people are dealt with now is far better. But I think, there'll obviously be loads of opinions around it, but I think diet has a massive part to play in everything. Most certainly for Albie, and me, my diet can have a massive impact in the way I am.
Yeah. No.
But I would say that after doing some research about diet and everything else, since trying to be as healthy as I can, the amount of basically crap in all the processed foods that we are sold everywhere, it must be playing havoc on us. And I'm not intelligent enough to know the answer, but when it comes to, you look at kind of cancer rates and everything else, how much more they are now.
They lower in the Amish community, because they don't eat processed foods. I'm definitely not getting my team for that, but I read a piece on it was like the Amish community, so they churn their own butter. I'm pretty sure they raise their own livestock and they do the fields, and essentially they're trying to be like self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And apparently cancer rates are lower, loads of stuff's lower because they don't eat anything processed.
I've started looking at food in a much healthier way in the last kind of couple of years. And if you even just read the back of bread, all the crap that is put into bread, it's unbelievable. And that's bread.
Sourdough.
I eat sourdough. No,
I like sourdough.
But there's one bread company that I've been able to find, or my friends passed it on to me. I think it's called Jason's bread.
That's what I eat. Jason's.
And that's
the blue bag one.
That's normal bread without any
right.
additives and any crap. It's the only bread that I've been able to find. And
in the supermarkets, there's lots of good bakeries, etc.
Of course,
but yeah, you're right. Jason's in a supermarket.
Yeah.
I can't eat white bread. I know that much.
Yeah.
I think it just doesn't agree with me. Like I feel really
But it'll be all the
bloated after
processed crap.
Really bloated. My other thing about ADHD as well, and I'm sorry to repeat myself because Duke's sat next to me on all of these, but do you think kids on tablets and social media and stuff is having an effect on them? And it not that it's causing it, but is it
certainly not causing?
Is it helping?
I think it can cause meltdowns, and kids aren't getting maybe as much fresh air as they can. But for someone like my son, who is he's my only kid, so it's my only kind of go-to. Him and his tablet, that is his time where he regulates. So it is his safe space. Mm-hmm. So if I threaten to take that away from him, he is absolutely distraught because he knows that's how he regulates. So he comes home. He's not on it loads, and he'll come home from school and he'll want to just I don't know, watch YouTube Kids or play Minecraft. But him playing Minecraft as well, he has learned so much stuff from being on his iPad that there's some stuff, honestly, that he comes out with, and I have absolutely no idea where he's learned it.
It's great, Minecraft.
And it is.
Yeah, my boys just started playing it now.
So,
and like they learn loads on there.
There's massive benefits to it. There's definitely some flaws to it, but I know, and there's sometimes like in some of the Facebook groups and stuff that I see that I'm in because of in that community, people saying, "Oh, you know, you take the tablets off them, they'll be fine." Nah. Take the tablet off them and you'll have massive meltdowns, and actually it is their safe space. So for me, there's probably, as anything, there'll be 2 or 3, 10 opinions, however many, and it's just whatever works for your child and you as parents. But there's nothing better for me than there's nothing better for him than being outside in a field, being able to run, jump on the floor, you know, play football, do whatever.
To be a kid.
He absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Minecraft's good, but is it as beneficial as Street Fighter 2 on the SNES?
We could certainly talk about 90s video games.
Street Fighter 2 was pretty up there.
What was the other one? Streets of Rage. Do you remember that one on the Spectrum?
Yeah.
Spectrum? Was it Spectrum?
Nothing. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to stop you there. Nothing beats GoldenEye.
You know, a Nintendo 64. Speaking to the right person about a Nintendo 64.
You guys go up.
Nothing beats GoldenEye.
Yeah, I tell you what, multiplayer on that, like you get memes on it nowadays, like, don't you? And it's like you didn't realize that was probably the best night of your life when you ordered like a pizza, and then maybe you've got some VHS tapes from, what was that store called?
Have a video.
Well, ABBA Video for us, but then in Swansea, where'd we get them from?
Blockbuster,
right? And then you've got Rumble Packs in your Nintendo 64 with GoldenEye. It doesn't get any better than that.
No.
Great days.
Fantastic. Although track and field was pretty special.
You had to really spam that button. And my finger, like, I think I might have had white.
You get your finger.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the better. Otherwise, you get like a vibration white finger from it. I think I used to like spaz out a bit too much. I think the
cramp
sleeve,
up the fingers.
the sleeve is probably a better one there.
Playing Pro Evolution Soccer as well, weren't we?
Yeah.
In
uni.
Oh my god!
That might be the last time. I was trying to think when the last time I saw you was, Andy. You know, and it might be when we played Pez.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think about it.
Wow.
Different lives then.
Yeah.
Pre-kids.
Happy enough to roll on some
Certainly am.
quick fires.
Certainly am.
Yeah.
Go on.
Favorite film, Griff?
See, I was thinking about this after I watched Stevie's thing. When Stevie was a guest, he said Carlito's Way, and that is up there for me. Carlito's Way is a fantastic film, but I am a big fan of also Braveheart and The Gladiator.
2 classics right there.
And Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the original.
Lost me on that one.
No. When that came out,
It was class.
it was awesome.
Yeah.
The
Loved
song.
it.
How long was that number 1 for?
12 weeks.
Also,
Long time.
12 weeks.
This is a really bad kind of claim to fame, right? But, and you can laugh.
Brian Adams. Oh, sorry.
The Bodyguard.
I love that movie.
Great film.
Whitney Houston
Love
CD.
that movie.
That Whitney Houston's album where that song came out was the first and only CD I ever stole from Woolworths.
We used to all chew it, and then we don't want to talk about that. It's not good. Do you remember? Right, this is an absolute blast from the past. Now you're talking about Bodyguard, right? Do you remember Llanbadarn Garage, right? And you used to be able to collect shell stickers.
I think I do.
And when you collected these shell stickers, when you got to a certain amount, you could either have a CD or a VHS.
Yeah.
And The Bodyguard was one of the VHSs that me and my dad got.
Fantastic.
And then Rap Attack was one of the music albums.
Great album.
Also, but The Bodyguard, what a great
Yeah.
90s movie. And that, you know, that point where the really creepy guy is on the phone.
No.
Is a
Yeah.
that's it. Really creepy scene. That
Horrible,
is.
isn't it?
And he's
Yeah.
got that little piece of her dress or something, the little shimmery bit of her dress in the
Yeah.
locker. It is a creepy. Great
How
movie.
much did you shit yourself though when they went to the log cabin in the snow
Oh.
and they started attacking the house and the sister got killed?
Really scary.
Yeah.
That's a good film, actually, thinking about it now.
And
That's
do you remember
a really good
the big camera, and they realised that
Yeah.
the gun's in the camera
Yeah.
because it's got the laser on it?
I still remember the guy. It was a twist, wasn't it? Because he
Yeah.
was another bodyguard, wasn't he? Or
Yeah.
something?
Well,
It was the
cop
guy
or
with the
something,
slick back, like blonde hair, I think
Yeah.
it was, and he was like, yeah, that was sort of a twist in it.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Great film.
Robin Hood the Hood.
I'll roll on to one then. Favourite chocolate bar?
So my downfall is chocolate. That if my diet would be fantastic if chocolate wasn't accessible.
Lock it away.
Honestly, it's
Talk to us about chocolate, Griff.
at the moment Twix.
You've gone to a classic.
Salted
haven't you?
caramel Twix
Oh,
is
okay.
fantastic,
Yeah.
but also you can't really beat a Boost.
It's a belter, a boost. It really is.
Can't beat it.
You can't. Yeah. Twix, not for me.
I'm not a massive fan of crisps. I don't really eat crisps.
But chocolate
Chocolate.
is your...
Chocolate, and remember the old, they're now 20p inflation, but do you remember the 10p cola bottles?
Oh, it's just the big cola
Just the big
bottles.
cola bottles. They're 20p now in my local shop. Rip off.
Fizzy
But
or non-fizzy?
None.
No,
None,
just
straight.
Straight gelatine.
Straight up.
Straight down the hatch. What music are you into, Griff? What's any favourite albums? Music? Like,
Very, very different music. Like I could listen to anything. At the moment, I'm quite into kind of like drum and bass, really. Yeah.
Do you work out to drum and bass?
Run with it.
Run, yeah. It's good to run to, isn't it?
Yeah,
Drum
run
and
with
bass.
it. Quite a bit, but also I quite like chilled music as well. Like I be for kind of chilled, that type of music as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Quite electronic.
Only recently.
Yeah, to be honest,
Used to
you
be a
text
bit
me
more
recently.
like pop music.
Indie
Yeah.
music or
Yeah,
pop music?
indie.
was
Indie.
big when we were growing up, obviously,
Yeah,
wasn't
it
it?
used to be into that massively, but now it's much more kind of
Dancey.
your genre.
Yeah. I love it.
Dave's bag.
Oh,
Yeah.
love it.
It is good to
Absolutely
work
love
out to, though.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drum and bass, definitely. I used to listen to drum and bass when I was on the Zwift.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good. It's high tempo. Get going. Our favourite cereal. Last one.
Now, I listened to this last week as well, and cereal for me, the ones that you were talking about, is all highly processed crap, which is
Well,
good for Stevie because he can eat whatever he wants and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
If I was going to have to pick a cereal, and I don't really eat cereal that much anymore, Cheerios. Honey Nut Cheerios.
Multigrain.
Okay.
Oh, the honey.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. What would you eat for breakfast instead then?
Eggs.
Nice.
You just eat a lot of eggs in the morning, do you?
Now I do, yeah.
Yeah. Air fryer.
Yeah, I haven't cooked eggs in the air fryer. Although a steak cooks really well in the air fryer. 9 minutes.
I haven't done it yet.
Have you got an air fryer now?
I haven't done it yet. I haven't got one.
Fantastic.
Winds me up all the time, so I mention air fryer all the time. Did you know you could cook?
Do you know Dave's got an air fryer?
Honestly, steak
I
in
mention
air
it
fryer.
at least 3 times a day.
To be fair, he's not even that bad. It's just
No, I put eggs in there, so like a boiled egg.
Yeah.
But you put an egg in there and you press the air fryer on for 180, 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
But why? You can just put it in water.
There's no washing up, Griff.
That's true.
Nothing.
You don't have to like pierce the egg or nothing. Though.
Nothing at all.
You just put that egg in there.
7 minutes.
And is it
180
like,
degrees.
is it runny in the middle?
Perfect.
Can you do one at a time?
Did 4 today.
That's okay, because I think I'm not doing one at a
4.
time. But 4.
So, yeah, there's your tip. Take that
I'll
with
try
you.
it.
Okay?
I'll try it.
Get yourself an air fryer, dudes.
I am. I'm fighting it, but I'm gonna have to succeed
January
one
sales.
day.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Happy?
I will just say, can I just finish on something?
Yeah.
If people do need any advice around children with autism or ADHD and how to navigate the system, feel free to get in touch with me because you literally don't get any support. And there is some local people here as well that can help with it all.
Brilliant.
I know somebody who might
Thank you.
need some information actually, so
Yeah.
I'll speak to you off here about
Yeah,
that.
no, great.
Cool. Thanks, Griff.
No worries.
Thank you.